The woman who's here that is the monitor for this room that takes care of the speakers looked at me and said, well, isn't that interesting? Your guys' lecture is the same name as that new car. And I said, yeah, it is interesting. That's really interesting. How many people here have never heard of Tesla?
Nikola Tesla.
Yeah, qualified that.
Yeah, which one? Yeah.
So we're going to be giving a talk today about Tesla and his vision for planet Earth, which was free energy for us, and how it was stopped. But even more importantly, what we're going to be talking about, because this lecture is being given by the Unarius Educational Foundation, and that is a spiritual school. It's a school that teaches every one of us is an energy being. And then everything we do in our day-to-day life, our thoughts and our actions, we're constantly putting information back into that energy body. And so it's kind of like you're developing your own hard drive by what you do every day of your life. Now, not only are you making your life better or worse by your actions and your decisions that you make, all of us do, we know this, but you're also, I gotta get this out here. You're also taking experiences that you have lived in previous lifetimes are influencing who you are today. So as I like to say, you know, there's no God that looks down and says, okay, you're going to be a Mozart and you're going to write symphonies at 5 and to hell with the rest of you. And you're going to be Tesla and you're going to be the most brilliant man and scientist that ever, you know, set foot on planet's floor, and the rest of you are out of luck. It's no. These are things that they have developed over many, many lifetimes. So it's just as natural for Mozart to be able to write symphonies at 5 as it was for you and I to play with little blocks when we were 5, you know. The difference was that that soul had developed that over many, many lifetimes. Now, with that understanding, now we can begin to see, okay, not only do we carry into the present, into our present life, things that we've developed over many, many lifetimes, we also carry the problems into our present life. So if you have a spouse that you argue with all the time, if you have friends that you are working with that you can't stand, if you have people that you work with and where you go to your job and you can't stand, or if there's all this friction all the time, there's a reason for that. And this is what Unarius gets into, is how does energy function? And how do you function as an energy being? Now you're also going to ask yourself, well, why the hell are we talking about Tesla if that's what Unarius is about? Well, Unarius has championed Tesla since its inception in 1954 by Ruth and Ernest L. Norman, because they recognized Tesla as a cosmic visionary, a person who came to this world not by accident, but a soul who was very, very developed and came from these higher planes of life to our planet to help us move our civilization forward. Now, as we all know, he was stopped in that effort to a degree. Many of his inventions were put into use. But his total vision, as we all know, wasn't accepted or taken seriously. But we're working towards that, which is really great. David?
Nikola Tesla was a cosmic visionary, according to Unarius. So is Jesus and Buddha. He had a developed higher self, or super consciousness. And Nikola Tesla, like all or most cosmic visionaries, were clairvoyant. And therefore, he could download from his higher self in the spiritual dimensions these incredible inventions, many of which are not ready for our present day society. But he knew intuitively he needed to plant the seeds for the future scientists, the future of planet Earth. And we're headed in that direction. So we're going to expand on some of the principles that Nikola Tesla planted the seeds for, which mainly, the main thing was for a way to provide wireless energy, electricity, without pollution, at a minimal cost, so everyone, no matter where they are on the planet, will have free electricity. So that's one of his goals. So how do we accomplish that? Well, in our opinion, it's going to take scientists of the future to go into the patents of Tesla and to be inspired by their own higher self to bring about these inventions. This is all part of the new age. Anybody here ever heard of the Aquarian Age?
Yeah.
Well, we've already started this. We're in the beginning stages of that. Well, in the future development of planet Earth, in the Aquarian Age, or the spiritual renaissance we call it, there's going to be a need for people to be in tune with their higher self as best they can, to work out their karma so that they don't interfere with this future development that's coming about. So the scientists, the technicians, the philosophers will need this spiritual bias.
The vision that Unarius has had for many, many years and talked about, as a matter of fact, I remember in 1974, Ernest L. Norman's wife, Ruth Norman, talking about this power tower that will be in our future. And this power tower will be a technological advancement beyond what Tesla envisioned, but where it will actually derive its power from the cosmos. And in this process, because as Tesla said, the universe is infinitely filled with energy. We're just a drop of energy in this vast sea of energy. And what we need to learn how to do is learn how to tap into that source and then have it come down into a form so that we can utilize it properly to power our civilization, power our planet. So Unarius has talked about how this is going to come about, how we can derive this energy and this power. Now what we're going to go in today is, and honestly, I'm not an electrical engineer. I've studied a lot about this stuff. I've read a lot about it. I can give a great overview. David can give you much more nuts and bolts on some of these things. Yet that's not what our point is in doing this. Our point is also to help in this awakening process for planet Earth so that we can all discuss it and say, you know what, there's a better way.
So Nikola Tesla developed technology that was in harmony with the universe. Now, nuclear power generation is not in harmony with the universe. It isn't. It's one of the side effects, as Kevin mentioned, is poisonous spent fuel rods. Well, what are we going to do with all that spent fuel rods? Just store them forever? And, that method goes against infinite intelligence, or is not in harmony at all. It's disharmony. It's out of harmony. And again, the infinite concept of cosmetics, the infinite concept of cosmic creation explains what we mean by what is in harmony with the universe. So, if we can extend our mind out, let's say 100,000 miles into space, most people, until recently, said that was the vacuum. There's nothing in there except maybe a few quantum fluctuations, right? You with me? But is the way Ernest Norman explained that, is there are multiple frequencies that are electromagnetic in nature, and they go into other dimensions, not just the Van Allen belt, which is the local magnetic field. The Earth is cocooned with a magnetic field, electromagnetic field. We truly live in an electric universe. Now, as Dr. Norman pointed out, within those, that what we call an empty vacuum is full of energy. It just is vibrating in different dimensions. So the astute inventor, the future cosmic visionaries, will learn to map and tune into those fields of energy, and they will be able to download from that cosmic universe, the cosmic energy, lots of energy. The sun does that all the time. The sun is not hot. The sun is like a generator. It converts fourth dimensional energy into third dimensional energy. And all the magnetic fields that are around every planet, their job is to step down that energy, and every planet gets exactly what it needs. It gets gravity, heat, and light to sustain the life on that planet. Planet Earth has all the energy that you and I enjoy. Heat, light, and gravity is a demodulation from the higher dimensions, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth. If you can get your mind around that. So we'll learn to work with force fields. So Nikola Tesla developed something called the Tesla Coil. Its job is to put out a force field. Now, back in his day, they were able to miniaturize this to a very small little coil. It became the heart and soul of every radio, television, and VCR. But that is a device, the Tesla coil, that is not even realized all the things that can be done with it. So they're now realizing all of this information, this new awareness about what Tesla planted the seeds for. Now, Kevin mentioned that there are many different technicians and scientists who are already starting to look at this. Anybody ever heard of Tesla phoresis? This is a recent internet expository by Rice University that was able to turn the Tesla coil on its side, and they took advantage of the force field that it put out. It was able to bond nanoparticles called nanotubes, carbon nanotubes. It was able to align them just with a sheer force field. Now our future scientists have got to learn to work with force fields. The UFOs that come into our dimension from other dimensions, other galaxies, they already know about all of this science. The spaceships or UFOs, whatever you want to call the flying saucers, they use the force field technology and they simply demodulate down to the planet's electromagnetic field. They can become invisible to radar or visible at any time they want, but they normally travel in the fourth dimension where there is no resistance to their movement or inertia or gravity or momentum. They're completely freed of that. Now think about how we can tap that technology and make that planet Earth a green thing again, like it was in Atlantis.
So, along with this future technology that's going to provide free energy for our planet, Tesla also saw that it was an unintelligent thing to pollute our world. And then there's another thing that happens when we start thinking in terms of high-frequency physics and actually utilizing this and understanding how energy and electricity functions. Because now you can begin to say, okay, well, if everything has a particular frequency, a vibration, as Tesla called it. Well, if it has a vibration or a frequency, and we learn how to tune exactly opposite of that frequency or that vibration, what are we able to do? Neutralize it, cancel it. This is what is all involved, as we were talking about in Unarius text, we talk a lot about this, is that we want to discharge that and put out of phase that energy from the past or from our life in lifetime or experiences we've gone through. Well, you can do the same thing with electricity, with energy. So we can take this technology, and they're actually experimenting with it in China right now, where they have what? Horrendous pollution.
In India, too.
In India as well. And they're saying, okay, you know what, let's try experimenting with coils and see if we can cancel out the smog. And they're actually working with this. And they're going to be able to do it if they continue along in that line of thinking. They're going to learn how to do that. But, you know, the smarter thing would never have been to got to that point where we need to learn how to do this. But now that we're here, what can we do to change that, to cancel out that energy, that waveform, that smog, that vibration that is that smog, and make our world and our environment more pristine again? So
one of the things that was pointed out in the Unarius text is one way to do this is to have the Tesla coil project or step up the frequencies, and then planet Earth or the atmosphere or the electromagnetic field can be made to resonate. And then you would simply have in major cities, London, Chicago, New York, all the other cities, Beijing, the reverse of that. So this becomes the antenna. This becomes the receiving coil, the antenna, and now this will step down that energy. So the Tesla coil takes electrical energy, just 60 cycle, and it steps it up to a frequency of about RF, 500,000 cycles per second. But the voltage comes up with it. So this puts out about 150,000 volts. We're going to turn it on in a minute. We're going to demonstrate how this can be used to transmit wireless energy. Other planets already use this technology. We're the ones who are spiritually retarded, and we're retarded in many different ways. But that's going to change. That's why we're having an Aquarian age come in and change all that balance. Does that make sense?
now I don't know, I'm going to go into a couple of things really quickly that maybe you know or maybe you don't know. Obviously, people always ask us, well, is this, zero-point energy? No, this is just the Tesla coil. And this is something that anybody can go online and purchase. I mean, it's plugged into the wall, and that's why it's going to fire up. Okay? And this is simply a way of demonstrating a principle. That's all this is. Okay? But very important to know is this piece down here at the bottom, this a little bit wider windings down here, this is called the primary. Okay? This one here, this is called the secondary. All right? I'm going to show you something very interesting that most people don't realize. Okay. There's no wire connecting the primary to the secondary. Okay? None. You can come up here and look. Yeah, the principle that is used or called that when it transfers that power, that electricity, from the primary to the secondary is called induction. This is in harmonic resonance with this. Therefore, it's able to take that energy, that electricity, and step it up in frequency. And in this case, we're going to see all those fun sparks come off the top. Okay. Now, this is also what they call a stopgap. It's a type of coil that utilizes a spark gap. Thank you. And so that's why it also produces this, very spurious charge that's coming off the top. But in the future, the Tesla coils, and they can be developed now. Only people love the fact that it has all these lightning bolts coming off the top of it. It doesn't have to do that at all. And if it's done properly, it just produces a field. But for demonstrating in audiences like this, that would be very boring. So we love it when it shows all the sparks coming off and all that. It's entertaining.
Now, this was frequencies stepped up from 60 cycle to 100 to about 500,000 cycles per second RF range. Now we're talking about ultra high frequencies that are way beyond that scientists need to experiment with. For all we know, they already have all of this developed, and they're not telling the public, but in the future, the military will allow us to have all of this great, wonderful technology. It's just a matter of evolving a more spiritual society. Does that make sense? Where we're not so prone to war and killing each other. That's all part of the new age when people develop this spiritual maturity. And to do that, you have to understand that you have lived many lives and that you have, some of them are negative and some of them are positive. So when you understand how to clear karma, you can be able to be a positive help in this movement. So you can tell the younger generation, your cousins, your children, make them aware of this great Tesla technology that's available and waiting to be tapped. It's already started. We attended a great energy lecture yesterday where people are already tuned to his wavelength, Tesla, and they're already starting to develop something called, out of the vacuum, zero-point energy, which is basically quantum fluctuations. So again, space is not empty. It's not a vacuum. It's full of all kinds of energy, vibrating at different states, different dimensions. So the quantum fluctuation is just a small beginning of understanding how we live in an electrical universe. That's our true nature, is energy. And we take the energy from our past lives and we are evolved. So, like Kevin said, Tesla developed this over many lifetimes, living on other planets, not just planet Earth. So he already had this developed higher self or superconsciousness. Everyone has it. You just need to be aware of how to develop it. It's your positive polarity, like a battery. It's like positive and negative. You need both to function. So you need to become a positive thinker so that everything is starting to bias toward the positive pole. Does that make sense?
So another reason I like talking about this idea that this induction that happens between the primary and the secondary. You ever been around somebody who's extremely negative, and what happens to you? It brings down your consciousness unless you walk away. It's like, oh man, I got to get out of here. Have been, then the other side of that is you've been around somebody who's extremely positive. And what happens? You feel good. Well, what's happening there? There's this transfer of energy between us and everybody we meet. There's this constant oscillation going on. Whether we're conscious of it or not, we're constantly sending out information to them, and they're constantly sending back information to us. So one of the things that we talk about in Unarius, and the reason it is this principle, it's induction, with our consciousness as well, is learning how to take our mind, and just like this Tesla coil is stepping up this information, this energy, this electricity, taking and utilizing our mind properly So we take different situations we come in contact with, and instead of them being the master of us, if we understand this information in principle, then we can be master of that situation and that experience that we're going through. It's all energy and function, energy and movement, electricity and movement. So that's one of the things that we talk about in Unarius, and one of the reasons why we give this wonderful demonstration, because we are energy beings doing the same thing.
Let's see if we can light these light bulbs.
All right.
Tell them about the purpose you designed that.
Yes, before we do this, this obviously we purchased off the internet. This one was built by a Unarius student who lived at some distance from where this one was, had no idea how many windings were on this one versus that one, and so he just kind of guessed at it, which means that if it was perfect, in perfect resonance, you wouldn't have to have this wire, which is, there's no power being transferred from this wire to that. It's just this provides a ground, a common.
A ground reference.
So that they can talk to each other, for lack of a better term. And so what we're going to do is we're going to turn this one on, and you're going to see that one take the electricity or the field that's being produced by this and step it down and light some light bulbs. Pretty cool. Oh, come on, that was cool, wasn't it?
Yeah. Now, if these were LEDs, they would light up a lot, but better. These are just incandescent. Now, the principle is like Tesla tried to plant the seeds for. You can have wireless energy light your home, provided with heat and all of the necessities, only because he is taking advantage of this principle of discovering a vibration of the planet Earth and adding frequencies or electricity vibrations to it so that the whole planet is set in vibration. Take that vibration and tap it and then step it down to a frequency. Now the planet Mars, they already use this technology, and other planets in our Milky Way galaxy you can read about in Unarius, they already use this, and they already have downloaded clairvoyantly chapters about how to use this and how to build it. But first you have to understand the principles of frequency and vibration and energy. You have to understand those principles. And then we can evolve this technology. Think about it. No more dependence on foreign oil or fossil fuels. No more need to build more nuclear power plants that are obsolete, and they're all falling apart. And fortunately, people in the United States intuitively know it's not a good idea to renew them and keep building them.
Slowly draw that back a little bit, slowly.
You gotta hold on tight. Here we go.
Yeah. 150,000 volts just went through your
Do I touch it?
That's a cool picture.
No, it always is more scary. All right, yeah, ready?
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, I feel like it charged. Thank you.
Now, yes, spin.
Repeat the question. How does electromagnetic energy relate to the Tesla
Well,
coil?
when you step up electricity, which is really electromagnetic in nature, it has both a magnetic and an electric component to it. And so when you step it up, it permeates or it broadcasts out a force field which is electromagnetic. So the sun does the same thing. It takes fourth-dimensional energy and develops or is in tune with the complex electromagnetic energy that surrounds our world, our planet, our galaxy, and it's what holds the planets together. It's beautiful the way Dr. Norman explains how the universe works according to the electromagnetic theories. We're just using a small little part of it in our physics, our electricity, but it's to be developed like Atlantis had, and we have an incredible positive future for planet Earth. It's going to be beautiful. Yes, sir.
You mentioned Fukushima
Yeah.
and its ability, theoretically, to neutralize cesium-137 and whatever. We're seeing a kill-off on the west coast of marine animals, and the correlation is there, if not causation. How far away are we from being able to use such technology? Because time...
You're right.
There's
a timetable happening.
There's a timetable.
The thing that to be aware of is that, and we say this at the beginning of every lecture because we give this lecture as a form of education to help everybody understand, first of all, that there's a positive future ahead of us, not to get caught up in the doomsday stuff, but also be aware that these scientists, beings on the inner planes of light, as we term them, they're inspiring the scientists of today. And there's what I saw the other day on HBO, there's a program called Vice, and there's a young scientist talking about taking these spent fuel rods and all this radiation and utilizing that as a power source. And he figured out, and it's theoretical, but he's working on making it a reality, and he's got all his, this is how it's going to work, and he's got it down. And so what we're seeing and is happening is, yes, we got some things that are problematic ahead of us. But we're also seeing scientists being inspired to come up with these brilliant ideas to overcome this. What about here's another one that isn't quite as drastic, but it is drastic. What about all the plastic that's in our ocean, that's floating around, and they got that big island in the middle of the Pacific? Well, who came up with the answer for that? There's like a 14-year-old kid who was inspired with a way to get this plastic out of our ocean. And in the next year, and now he's like 18 or 19, and in the next year, they're actually going to start implementing it and getting rid of all of that plastic in that big island in the middle of the Pacific. So yeah, things are dire. Things don't look very good. But also remember, we have this incredibly positive force that is also providing this positive and intelligent energy to inspire people to come up with solutions to these many, many problems that we have.
When Nikola Tesla died in 1943, he went back to his spiritual home, the planet devoted to science called Eros. And if you want to purchase our book, Tesla Speaks Volume 1, it goes into describing in detail the beautiful spiritual home that he lives in. And he's teaching in his home other scientists who lived here at one time, and they tell about how they're going to come back in the new age and develop this technology.
And we're seeing it happen. That's the fantastic
We
thing.
are. And so we have a question back there.
Yeah, the generator you have here obviously plugged into the wall. How would the original one or the new one generate its energy to power your antennas?
Right here, amid the pyramids.
And very quickly, the reason there was that, the pyramids were shaped as they were, as David mentioned earlier, the surface of those pyramids was covered with a combination, it was an element combined of crystal and gold, pure cells, that would tap into, that were in resonance with, as we talked about here, with this interdimensional energy. So they were able to take that electromagnetic or interdimensional energy, step it down in frequency, and begin to work it so that it became a tangible electrical charge that we could use on our world. And it goes in depth into it in that pamphlet, but very shortly that's how it happened.
So now, Kevin mentioned briefly, but in the future we're going to have a power tower devoted in his name called the Tesla Power Tower. It'll be standing 2,000 feet high, about 605 meters, go about 1,000 feet into the ground, and it will tap all kinds of electromagnetic energy. Now this power tower will be sending out coherent beams of energy, like the laser is coherent, they're all in phase. Well, a beam of energy will be narrowed or pointed or vectored at the receiving stations, and it will go right through the earth. And you can read about the future power tower that is a part of our future that we will have to provide planet Earth with clean, unpolluted energy.
One more question you keep. Yeah.
Yeah, I just, the EMF fields are people becoming more and more sensitive and the toxicity of the EMF problem. How would this be different from that?
Well, first let's get right to the point.
Yeah.
Most people, whether you understand it or not, we are saturated with EMF. Period. It's all a matter of frequency. We couldn't be here if there wasn't EMF. But there's different types of EMF fields, force fields, some of which provide a charge that is hindering physical bodies, and some of which we couldn't be here without that charge. So the power towers in the future are going to be at a frequency that it will not inhibit or hurt human beings or life on our world. As a matter of fact, it'll do the exact opposite. You see? So it's just a matter of frequency. That's why, you know, this one stepped up that charge. If you took your finger and you stuck it into the wall, you'd die. But if we take that same charge, that electrical charge, and we step it up in frequency, now you can come up here and pretend you're the Statue of Liberty, and it's not going to do anything to you. So that's what we're talking about, is in our future, is that you need to, it's an understanding, it's intelligent. It's not just, you know, gee, plug this thing in. It's intelligence where we learn to utilize this high frequency physics and step up that electrical charge to a point where it's not going to be harmful, it's going to be helpful, it's going to cancel out, among other things, not only the pollution, but bacteria, a lot of things that we're going through on our planet that are the signs of a very immature world, and we're going to be able to step it up so that it helps our planet in a positive and constructive way. And we are out of time.
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Sir, you had a question over there.
Yeah, so my question is, that's a really cool, I guess, it's a cool device and everything. Like, what if maybe some of the audience here, like, say, okay, cool, now I want to kind of like make something like that, and just go right away, see how it works, and see if you can iterate and improve on that.
You can do it. Just go on the internet. Google Tesla coils. You'll find a million.
Different types.
Yeah, I mean, there's plans. There's everything you want to do if you want to play with it. I encourage you. It's really fun to do.
If you're a serious researcher, I encourage you to purchase some of the Unarius textbooks that go into the proper utilization of all of this. How it explains how the atom works. The atom receives this energy from the higher dimensions through a vortexual movement. And what we see is the atom is strictly the vortex, the central nucleus of this interdimensional vortex. It's fascinating science.
Something I like to say as well, along that line, is be aware if you do go online and you Google it and you find a Tesla coil that you want to make yourself at home, be open to the idea that Tesla is actually working with you when you're doing that. He's inspiring and working with every one of us as we go through this process of trying to learn.
Thank you.